You ever watched a man dissolve in slow motion, still holding the door open? He's there, right in front of you, carrying the weight of commitment on his back, waiting for texts that don't come, smiling through silences that feel like verdicts, sitting across from a woman whose lips used to tremble at his name and now can barely form a sentence around his presence. He doesn't know he's fading. He calls it patience. He calls it maturity. He tells himself, this is love, not realizing that every act of emotional accommodation is chiseling away at what made him magnetic in the first place. And the cruel twist? He thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's listening. He thinks he's loving harder. But he's not being loved back. Not the way he was, not the way he needs, and he can't figure out why. Why do women say they want empathy, kindness, connection, and then run the other way when they find it? Why do they ask for vulnerability and then lose interest the moment you expose your soul? Why does the sensitive man, the safe man, the one who texts back, hold her when she cries, cook her dinner? Why does that man keep getting left? Schopenhauer didn't call this a relationship problem. He called it a biological pattern. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to realize that she's not being dishonest. She's not deceiving you. She's not cruel. She's conflicted. There's a war between what her mind says she wants and what her body actually responds to, and the battlefield is your heart. You are the casualty of her contradiction. She tells you, I just want someone who communicates, but when you start expressing everything with honesty and vulnerability, she starts drifting. You become easier to understand, predictable, explainable, and in that, something ancient in her shuts down. She doesn't even know why. She might still love you, she might still care, but the electricity dies. You think it's about your words. It's not. It's about your energy. She doesn't want to understand you. She wants to feel you. She wants the mystery, the pull, the gravity. And gravity doesn't explain itself. Gravity doesn't apologize. It just is. Schopenhauer wrote that, with women, love remains not a matter of personal feeling but of nature's will. And nature has no sentiment. Nature is not interested in whether you were there for her during her darkest hour. Nature wants strength. Nature wants confidence wrapped in stillness. Nature wants the man who moves with conviction, not consultation. You think your loyalty is earning her admiration. You think sacrifice is your sword. But all she sees is that you're losing your edges. She doesn't need you to soften. She needs you to stay rooted. She needs to know that you are you, regardless of her moods, her fears, her chaos. That's what they don't tell men. That the more you try to be the man she said she wanted, the more invisible you become to the part of her that actually selects. Not from logic, but from feeling. Not from comfort, but from desire. And desire doesn't bloom in certainty. It blooms in polarity, in tension, in the knowledge that you could leave, that you could choose yourself, but you don't. That's where admiration lives. That's what sustains attraction. Not effort, but essence. You think love is about consistency, that if you just keep showing up, keep proving yourself, eventually she'll feel safe enough to open. But what if she's not looking for safety? What if safety, without awe, is actually the reason her attraction dies? You're not losing her because you failed, you're losing her because you succeeded too well in becoming digestible. You were once the fire, now you're the fireplace. Reliable, warm, background. And she can't feel the burn anymore. Schopenhauer warned us. He saw this tragedy unfolding long before dating apps and relationship podcasts tried to package attraction into formulas. He said, men are more capable of objectivity, while women act more as the instruments of the species. You hear that? He wasn't reducing women to biology. He was revealing a harsh truth, that nature uses women to test, to filter, to select. Not through intention, but through instinct. She doesn't need to explain why she stops laughing at your jokes. She doesn't need to know why your touch no longer gives her goosebumps. Nature made sure she doesn't have to understand it, only feel it. And you're trying to solve it like a math problem. You're replaying the moments in your head. What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. You did everything right, by the book. But the book lied. The book told you she wants a man who listens, who shares, who opens up. And maybe she does. But her body, the part of her that chooses without consulting her mind, wants something else, something older, something dangerous. The man who held her breath without touching her, the man who didn't chase her, but whose presence haunted her, the man who didn't explain himself, who didn't ask for permission to be. That man lives in her fantasies, even if she never admits it. That man makes her nervous, makes her wonder, makes her feel alive. And you, if you've been loving her with all your might, with complete emotional transparency, with nothing left in the tank, have become the opposite of that. It's not your fault. No one told you that women don't speak the language of logic in love. They speak the language of energy, of polarity, of power and surrender. You think I'm fine means she's fine. You think silence means peace. But sometimes silence is a scream. Sometimes I'm tired means she's tired of asking for you to be what you were at the beginning. A force, not a fixture. You remember when she looked at you like you were made of fire and danger and possibility? That wasn't about your six-pack or your bank account. It was about how little you needed her approval. It was about your direction, your purpose, the edge you carried. And the moment you surrendered that edge in the name of emotional accessibility, that moment you bent too far to accommodate, you started dying in her eyes. Slowly, politely, tragically. Because love, for her body, not her brain, is not about kindness. It's about awe, about presence, about stillness in the storm. And when you lose that, no amount of good morning texts or candlelit dinners can bring it back. That's why she pulls away. That's why you feel her slipping. That's why your efforts land like lead. You're not speaking her language anymore. You become fluent in her words, but mute in her instinct. And now you sit there wondering what changed, why the woman who once couldn't keep her hands off you now flinches at your touch, why the woman who once studied your face now scrolls her phone in silence. You didn't stop loving her, you stopped leading yourself. You let the fear of losing her turn you into someone she didn't choose. You became predictable, and predictability in the realm of desire is death. Schopenhauer wasn't trying to make us bitter, he was trying to make us see. To see that male suffering in love isn't rooted in a lack of effort. It's rooted in a misreading of the game. Women don't want your apologies. They want your depth, your danger, your ability to be unmoved by their tests. Not because you don't care, but because you know who you are, regardless of how they feel. You thought vulnerability was the key, but vulnerability without power is just exposure. You showed her your soul, but you stopped protecting your edge. And without that edge, she can't respect you, no matter how much she wants to. The tragedy? She misses the man you used to be. The one who didn't explain his worth, the one who didn't trade presence for performance, the one who made her feel like she was orbiting a planet too vast to name. That man, brother, isn't gone. He's buried, under layers of compromise and confusion and cultural lies. But he's not dead. He's waiting. Waiting for you to stop chasing, to stop apologizing, to stop negotiating your value. Waiting for you to rise. You were taught that love is something to earn, something to achieve through devotion, consistency, selflessness. But Schopenhauer didn't see love as a reward for virtue. He saw it as a mechanism, a blind instinct, indifferent to ethics, indifferent to fairness. That's what breaks men. This slow realization that love doesn't reward goodness, it rewards strength, but not brute strength, the strength to walk away, the strength to command silence, the strength to remain yourself, even when everything in you wants to bend to keep her close. You can buy her flowers, cook her meals, memorize every word she says, but none of that matters if you lose your gravity. If she can read you like a brochure, you're no longer a mystery. And what woman has ever been drawn to something she fully understands? She doesn't want a man who lays himself bare in desperation. She wants the man who could vanish without explanation. Not because he's cruel, but because he's full, complete, unshakable. That's the part Schopenhauer understood better than most modern psychologists dare admit. He saw that the will to live, the will to reproduce, disguises itself in the romance of love, in the illusion of compatibility, in the mythology of soulmates. But it is blind, ruthless. And women, as vessels of that will, don't fall in love with goodness, they fall in love with strength, because nature demands it, because biology does not care about your poetry. And yet, we live in an age that teaches men to become gentle, emotional, exposed, as if that's what sustains female desire. It isn't. That's what sustains her ego. But desire lives in the unknown, in the asymmetry, in the feeling that she must earn your center, not be handed it like a participation trophy. You think you're being emotionally available, but you're just bleeding out in front of someone who didn't ask you to, and the moment you do that, you flip the dynamic. You give her the masculine role, the chooser, the fixed point. And she doesn't want that role. She resents it. Because the feminine yearns to flow around something solid, not because she's weak, but because she wants to surrender. And no woman can surrender to a man who has surrendered himself first. That's the paradox men face. The more emotionally generous you become, the more invisible you become to her biology. You were told vulnerability creates connection, and it does, but not attraction, not tension. Vulnerability without mystery is just weakness, and weakness, no matter how poetic, does not pull her in, it pushes her away. She may not understand this herself. She may cry as she leaves. She may call you perfect, say you did everything right. And you did, according to the script. But the script was written by people who don't understand women, who don't understand the primal forces at play, forces Schopenhauer dared to name. Forces that see men not as people, but as vessels for strength, for continuation, for power. Not domination, but stillness, purpose. The immovable man. That's what she aches for when she sleeps beside you and dreams of someone else. Not a richer man, not a taller man, a deeper man. A man who doesn't chase her approval like a starving dog. A man who loves her without needing her. That's the edge you must reclaim, because love without power is dependency. And no woman dreams of mothering her man. No woman wants to look into your eyes and see herself reflected as your savior. She wants to feel chosen by a man who could walk away but stays, not because he can't live without her, but because he doesn't need her to feel complete. That is love from strength. And that, ironically, is the only kind that lasts. You think becoming softer will bring her closer, but softness without structure collapses. She doesn't want a man who cries every time she pulls away. She wants a man who feels deeply, but doesn't get lost in those feelings, who can stand in the fire of emotion and not beg for rescue. That man is rare. That man is magnetic. That man doesn't need to prove himself. He is himself. And she can feel it in his silence more than in 1,000 words. Look around. How many men are breaking under the weight of love because they believed that giving everything would be enough? How many are ghosted after opening up, after revealing their traumas, after offering their hearts without armor? Not because women are cruel, but because women are wired to respect what resists them, not what dissolves into them. Schopenhauer wasn't bitter. He was honest, brutally so. He stripped the illusions from romance and exposed the raw machinery underneath. And if you can face that machinery without flinching, you become free. Not from love, but from the false version of love you were taught to worship. You begin to understand that to be a man is not to chase, to prove, to beg. It is to become so whole that she must rise to meet you. And if she doesn't? You remain whole. You don't bend, you don't collapse. You don't explain, you are. This is the new edge, the ancient edge, the edge every woman secretly hopes her man will walk. Not the edge of arrogance or cruelty, but the edge of sovereignty, of purpose so rooted that her storms can rage and you remain unshaken. That's the man she dreams of. That's the man who wakes something deep in her, something older than words, something sacred. But you can't fake this. You can't learn it from YouTube. You have to build it alone, in silence, in discipline, in the decision to stop asking women who you are, to stop negotiating your worth, to stop becoming what she says she wants, and start becoming who you were born to be. That man is dangerous, not because he harms, but because he heals without needing to be needed, because he walks through the world with the calm of someone who has faced rejection and didn't flinch. That man cannot be seduced by praise, nor destroyed by loss. He chooses her, but never needs her to feel like a man. And here's the final truth. She can't love you until she respects you, and she can't respect you until you respect yourself more than you desire her. That is the bitter lesson Schopenhauer gave us, and it is the only path forward. So stop mourning the woman who left when you gave her everything. Mourn the man you abandoned to try and keep her, and then go find him again. Build him again, not for her, but for yourself. And when you do, when you return to that unshakable core, you won't need to chase love. Love will orbit you, quietly, without force, without drama, because it finally found something real to follow.